Today's title is Yamitsuki Mura, which translates to Addictive Village, by Alp Code 526724. This doujin is 3 chapters long and also has an anime adaptation. The first page introduces us to a village far north of the capital of the Japanese Empire. In the decades following the Meiji Restoration, there was a rumor that men who visited the village never came back. It cuts to our main character Kotaro making a trip to the town. He isn't impressed with the place and stands out because of his modern clothing. People are staring at him because of his clothes. He asks a woman if there are any hotels nearby, and she says he won't find any here. He gets upset at his lack of information and debates going back home, but says he can't leave empty-handed. Suddenly, a woman approaches him. The woman is called Shizuka and offered Kotaro a room to stay in. They chat, and Kotaro says he majored in mythology and folklore and came to the town to learn more about it. He is specifically interested in the rumor and asks Shizuka if she knows anything about it. She denies ever hearing about it. Kotaro brings up that he hasn't seen a man in the village. Shizuka answers that the men of this village have very weak constitutions, so many of the women are their caretakers. After being treated to a meal, he goes to sleep. While sleeping, someone comes in his room. It turns out to be the first woman he asked for any hotels. Her name is Oka. Oka has a strange mark on her and wants to sleep with Kotaro. She makes some extremely not subtle moves towards him. Kotaro is confused about the sudden situation and notices the strange mark on her. He eventually gives in, and they do it. He passes out afterwards and wakes up the next morning and hears Shizuka calling his name. Kotaro wonders if last night was a dream, but quickly dismisses that idea. He is confused about the change in Oka's personality, and he washes his face with water. In the water's reflection, he sees that he now has a mark on himself. Kotaro searches his bag for his notes and finds an entry on the Succubus. They are a monster that seduces men and absorbs their life essence as food. They can be identified by their unique marking, which is then branded on their victims, which serves as a link between them. For the victims branded, they are doomed to serve as food forever. Kotaro then makes some ink and paints a symbol over his heart, after he ingests some berries. He says doing this should be enough to test if Oka's a succubus, and to test countermeasures. He goes outside and sees Shizuka and Oka. Oka apologizes for being rude to him yesterday, and Kotaro thinks that Oka is playing dumb because Shizuka is there. He drags Oka aside and confronts her, saying that she is a succubus. Oka claims she has no idea what he's talking about and tells him off. She leaves and Shizuka comes over. She sees that Oka is mad and asks if this is about the mark. She tells Kotaro about a place where evil can be driven away. The place she told Kotaro about is a shrine, and he goes there. He meets a shrine maiden Renge, who is the only one at the temple. She somehow already knows his purpose for visiting the temple. She suggests that they perform an exorcism and begin. Kotaro is comforted by her skill and begins losing consciousness. Renge then starts touching his no-no place and claims it's part of the procedure. Kotaro is extremely confused and releases the nut. He then sees that Renge has a mark on her. She suddenly gets on top of him, and they do it. In the middle of the act, Renge's personality suddenly changes for a moment. Kotaro is confused but comes to the conclusion that instead of Oka and Renge being succubi, a succubus is possessing the bodies of women with the mark on them. The reason for Renge suddenly switching back to her normal self is the countermeasures he took earlier. When he directly shot the medicine into Renge, that is when she temporarily went back to her old self. He continues to administer the medicine to Renge, and she eventually goes back to normal. Afterwards, Kotaro asks her if there are any old shrines around the village, and she directs him to a cave behind the temple. He goes into the cave to find Shizuka there and confronts her on being the succubus controlling the women. He explains that he let his guard down around her, and at the places she told him to go, he got attacked. Shizuka says that then they must be the succubus, but Kotaro says he never said anything about a succubus. He also notes that despite being the closest to him, Shizuka never got controlled. She drops the act and reveals herself as the succubus. She says that the village is nothing but a human farm for her, and that's why the rumor exists. She starts to consume his life force and notices the holy mark Kotaro marked on himself as a countermeasure. She says it's useless and controls Oka and Renge to come to the cave. All three of them attack Kotaro to consume his life essence. Kotaro is able to hold his own for a long enough time that Oka and Renge lose consciousness. Shizuka is confused by how he is still standing, and Kotaro reveals that he didn't mark the holy mark on himself, but the energy mark that increases his stamina. She accepts his challenge of endurance. Eventually, the medicine Kotaro has been administering to Shizuka starts to take effect, and she begins to lose her strength. He eventually beats her, and the succubus mark on him disappears. Shizuka is upset that she lost to a human and admits defeat. She doesn't care if Kotaro or exposes her to the village. Kotaro says he won't do any of that and reveals that he just wanted to find the truth behind the rumor. He doesn't care if Shizuka keeps taking life essence. She laughs at this and decides that she will travel with Kotaro. She says that it's the first time she's felt like this and she won't be satisfied with anyone else. The Doujin ends with Shizuka following Kotaro to his next journey. Let me know what you think of this Doujin.